born and bred. Now HOFer, even after I'm dead. Thank you.
Alrighty, hey sports fans, welcome. I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. Welcome to this edition of Football Talk. We're all the way up to week 14. Things are starting to pan out. Only 3 weeks left. Some crazy division races. We're going to get into everything for you. But as you know, I do not do this show alone. I only enlist the very best talent around. None other than Chris Lardieri. Follow him on Twitter at Chris L Sports. Or you can read him online, chrislsports.blogspot.com. Without further ado, Mr. Lardieri, what's happening?
Charles, great to be here as always. Thank you again. Terrific introduction. And, I guess I'm doing a little better than Mike Shanahan is right now. What do you say?
Yeah, probably so. But, we're going to get into that. But let's go ahead and talk about just the rest. I mean, how crazy these games were, though. You had the equivalent of the Heidi Bowl, as we know, back in 1968 when the network went off to show the show Heidi, which is an old classic movie. When the Jets and Raiders were playing, they left because they thought the game was over. While Heidi was showing, the team scored 3 touchdowns. And here we had this week the Ravens and the Vikings. And any of you were watching that game, the final 2 minutes and 9 seconds, 5 touchdowns scored between the two teams. Incredible.
Yeah, I didn't happen to be near a TV at that moment, but my phone was going nuts with the scores back and forth. I thought I was seeing things. And to make it more interesting, we had that game and a few others that were literally winter wonderlands, which made it even more intriguing football. So, yeah, just crazy. And Jacoby Jones returned a kick. He took it all the way because Mike Tomlin was nowhere near the Viking sideline. So good for him.
Yeah, and it's crazy about those snow games because when I see snow, I'm thinking, go ahead and, if you're a betting man, go ahead and play the under because they're not going to be able to do a whole lot. But, LeSean McCoy, what did he run for? 270 yards?
I believe so.
Against the, against the Detroit Lions. And how can that snow was ankle deep out there. How in the world did that even happen?
You've come to the right place, Charles. I'm an expert at playing tackle football in the snow, my youth in New Jersey. One thing I will say is the cleats are probably a lot better now than what we had. We're just sneakers, I'm sure, and your toes get pretty frozen. But one thing I think back to my great childhood is the offense does have an advantage because when you think about it, when you run, you want to run forward. If you're a defensive back or a linebacker going backwards, side to side,
right.
Not easy to do in the snow. So conventional wisdom would think you won't be able to throw and everything, but basically what it means is you probably can't throw the deep ball if it's windy, but if you can get a step on a cornerback, it could be lights out. And Shady McCoy had a field day on a Detroit Lions defense. It's been up and down all season, clearly down this past week.
And, speaking of playing in the snow, of course, the talk had gotten around that Peyton Manning couldn't play in the snow. But, to me, beating Tennessee doesn't really prove anything. I mean, I could probably throw for 300 yards against Tennessee. So, to me, yes, they won the game, but, beating up on Tennessee does not prove that everything they had said about your whole 16-year career about you playing in snow and cold weather is necessarily not true. He's going to have to get it done. He's in Denver, get it done in crunch time, in the playoffs, against a good team before he'd ever lose that type of a label.
Very true, but one thing that I noticed, against the Patriots, that particular game, the wind was brutal, which really didn't help them. But, I mean, at the end of the day, the way the Patriots' defense is now after all these injuries, are they even that much better than the Titans? And the way things are going to shake out with the injury to Gronk, it looks like if the Patriots and Broncos square off again, it's going to be a mile high. And Peyton did great in that it was like 14-degree weather at game time.
Right. Yeah.
So I think the key is going to be the wind ultimately, and what team he goes up against. So yeah, I mean, like you said, the Titans don't really have a formidable defense, but as I said here a few weeks ago, don't write the Broncos off yet. And now all of a sudden they look to be in the driver's seat for the bye and home field throughout.
Yeah, and just from really avoiding injury. And speaking of injury, we talked about the Ravens. Dennis Pitta getting back on the field. That's good to see after he got a hip fracture in training camp. But good to see him out there in that game against the Vikings. But let's look at the injury update, though, for this week. I mean, Wes Welker with a concussion probably will not play tomorrow. I don't know if he's been definitely ruled out yet or not. Adrian Peterson's out with a foot sprain. No fracture or anything, just a sprain. Jonathan Stewart, MCL. Jonathan Stewart, running back for the Carolina Panthers. Tyrann Mathieu, defensive back for Arizona. He's out for the year. Rob Gronkowski, of course, out for the year. And also Dimitri Patterson, rookie defensive back for the Miami Dolphins. He's out with a groin done for the year as well. So they keep on piling up and piling up.
Yeah, I heard one writer refer to it as the year of the injury, and that's really what it's become. As we said, to toot our own horn in the preseason, the healthiest team, survival of the fittest, left standing at the end would be the contenders for the Super Bowl, and that's what it's going to come down to. And getting back to Gronkowski, I know we talked about this in our pre-production meeting. Brandon Merriweather, as you had said weeks ago, Charles said that if you're not going to let us hit to the head, we're going to start going for the knees. And when that happens and guys start blowing out their knees, what's the NFL going to do now? And now we've got this conundrum. We've had a few injuries here now, knee injuries here in the last few weeks, and clearly the defensive backs and linebackers and so on have gotten the memo, and they're not hitting to the head. They're hitting low.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that there's anything, Brandon Merriweather, he just chose his words very poorly, but what he's saying is there's just so many limitations put on, and I don't think someone really wants to end anyone's career, but what he's saying is they're making the strike zone so small and putting so many limitations on that you really have no choice. And when you look at just centers of gravity, normally the defensive backs are smaller guys. So there's only certain ways you're going to be able to hit someone and get them down. So the NFL has got a little bit of a problem here. And I was watching the Four Letter Network the other day, and I think last year, the whole season, there was 32 torn ACLs. This year, there's 40 already, and we still have 3 weeks to play.
Yeah, and once upon a time, remember, they used to blame it on artificial turf versus grass, and I think that's been thrown out the window. The field turf is nowhere near as bad as the old rock-hard artificial surface. Injuries are happening on grass, regardless of the surface. It's clearly now become an issue that, if things keep going and trends continue, could be an issue that the NFL will have to deal with like the head. Now, the difference is, I don't know if there'll be any class action lawsuits from former NFL players talking about how the league didn't protect them from blowing out their knees and leaving them crippled, etc. So,
right.
From a business decision, I understand why the NFL is trying to outlaw this helmet contact and so forth. But like you said, the proverbial strike zone is going to get smaller, and will this ultimately mean we will see little or no defense in the future?
Well, I said it's just getting to the point where if you want to go ahead and put flags on these wide receivers, just go ahead and do it. That's it. There can only be so much protection. I like what Shannon Sharp said. Again, I quote Shannon every now and then, even though he says a lot of crazy stuff. But, what do they say? Even a broken watch is right twice a day?
Correct.
Shannon said there is something called assumed risk. And that's what you have when you go to play professional football. You know about that. You know about the injuries. You know what can happen. You decide to play anyways. You could get a regular job and go sell insurance if you want to, but you decide to play pro football, there is an assumed risk there. You got helmet, you got padding, and it's one of those things that's just an occupational hazard. Football players, sports, contact sports, you get concussions, just like race car drivers can't hear, and other things. If you look at different industries, you have injuries that are specific to that because of the repetitive and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look at these guys that work on oil rigs out in the ocean. They get paid a great amount of money, but it's stressful and physical, demanding work, and sometimes life-threatening. It's called supply and demand. They quote my economics professor back in the day. So, yeah, I mean, but the other thing you bring up with the head, at least these players have a helmet. Now, Look, there are guys who clearly just go for the head and it's wrong, and they're defenseless receivers, et cetera. I get you have to crack down on that.
Right.
But, I mean, if you're going to make a tackle, look back to that Saints 49ers game, the helmet-to-helmet hit that never happened on Breeze. What are we going to do? It's really going to turn into touch football, like you alluded to.
Yep. Well, hopefully not. But anyways, let's go ahead and move on. I'm sure we could do a whole show or several shows on that particular topic. But let's get back to the week at hand here. The Dallas Cowboys. We're talking about the snow and how weather affected everybody. The Cowboys just froze up in Chicago on a chilly Monday night. They couldn't stop anyone. They lost the game. What was it? 45-28. To Chicago with their backup quarterback. This was a game we both thought they would win, but they go in there and just get hammered by the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, and, I was watching that game, and right before the half, the Cowboys are still in it, and Alshon Jeffrey makes a phenomenal catch, and yes, Lane Kiffin, he won't be pumping gas anytime soon, but I digress. And basically, it almost seemed like the wind was let out of the sails of the Cowboys there. And Jerry Jones can blame his multi-million-dollar man, Tony Romo, but Tony Romo doesn't play defense for the Cowboys. And when you get in a hole like that, it's hard to come out of. Cold, hot, 72 degrees in a dome, whatever. But the Cowboys' defense is atrocious. And watching that game made me realize your bold prediction last week that you think the Cowboys were out of the playoff race a week even before that Bears game. I think you're going to hit the nail on the head on that prediction.
Yeah, I don't think they will because, and you look at the way that the Eagles are playing, look at what the Cowboys have left, including playing the Eagles in the final week. I don't see it happening. And you look at the other teams which are contending. You got the Arizona Cardinals contending. You got the Carolina Panthers. You got the New Orleans Saints. All those guys, one of those three teams is going to grab the wild card spot. The two wild card spots, rather, over the Cowboys. Only way the Cowboys get in is to win their division, and it doesn't look like Philly is letting their foot off the gas here. 5 straight wins. Nick Foles finally threw an interception, but still playing under those conditions, and Philly playing well.
Yeah, and, the beginning of the year, Chip Kelly was all the rage, and then they fell to 1-3, and everyone said his scheme doesn't work. It only works in college. I think he silenced the critics, and to go from such a horrible year last year to potentially winning the division, it's a great story, much like the Redskins last year, but with far less strife, I'd say.
Yeah, and, the whole problem with Chip Kelly and his offense was Michael Vick. That was the real problem. Once Nick Foles got in there, that was it. They took off, and that was that. Haven't looked back yet.
Yeah, and to be fair, LeSean McCoy's had a phenomenal year. If it weren't for Peyton Manning, he would be MVP right now. And what people forget at Oregon, Chip Kelly ran the ball a lot, and it wasn't just predicated on throwing the ball. It's not like he had outstanding quarterbacks there. He had mobile running quarterbacks, but he had some phenomenal running backs come through Eugene. And give him a weapon like that, and that's definitely helped Foles. The pressure's not on him just to throw the ball. He's got a great running back, and you can't key on any one area as a defense.
Yep, that's true. And, staying in that NFC East, Mike Shanahan in the cold and snow against KC, watching his team go down in flames. And that looked like, finally, it did look like a final implosion there. Now, today, Mike Shanahan has benched RG3. Is that, do you think, Shanahan's just final act of defiance there? Benching RG3, he knows he's done.
Yeah, I think it is, and it was peculiar because things started out Sunday with a report that Shanahan cleared out his office last year before the playoff game, but then wasn't going to quit because it would look like he quit just because RG3 was hurt, and just really bizarre, and I don't know why, if he or anyone in his camp leaked it, they would do that, but his days are numbered. Snyder is going to lay the boom on him probably after the season, but what I ask is, why wasn't Kirk Cousins starting at the beginning of the year? We even addressed it here. Right. He looked rusty. He didn't look like he was 100%, even after struggling in the first couple games. Put Cousins in. Is Dan Snyder running the team? Is this another Jerry Jones or Al Davis situation? I'm not sure, but yeah, great temper tantrum by Shanahan. It's going to make for great newspaper stories and so forth, but a head scratcher to say the least.
And, I think that what Shanahan honestly should do is really just go ahead and resign, citing personal reasons. Just, that's it. Don't take a shot at Snyder or RG3. Just say he's resigning for personal reasons. That's that. He's moving on. Call it creative differences or whatever. But this is headed for something really ugly.
Yeah, it is. And ultimately, with the amount of money he's owed on his contract, financially, it's probably better for him to get fired. So ultimately, maybe that's why he's doing this.
Well, I guess he was questioned in the news conference whether he was trying to get fired. He said no.
Well, then you have to take him at his word, don't you? Dr. James Andrews agrees.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, let's talk about, another team that's kind of up and coming, the Cincinnati Bengals, even though they've been a little helter-skelter, but they went ahead and whooped on the Colts this week. What do you think, Andy Dalton? And they talk about A.J. Green a lot, but I think really kind of an unsung hero there on that receiving core, Marvin Jones, who's really come into his own this year, too.
Yeah, he's had a phenomenal year, and I know watching some of the Hard Knocks episodes this summer, he looked like he had a lot of potential. But I think he's a beneficiary of teams are now double-teaming A.J. Green, and when you do that, you leave someone like him going. And, I mean, Dalton, throughout the season, has hit him on some quick strikes, and even just watching highlights, the guy can take off. He's a burner. And, he's definitely helped out, and Giovanni Bernard in the backfield, a real nice compliment to run the ball finally, something the Bengals have been lacking for years. And, ultimately, I think the Bengals are going to make the playoffs. I think they'll win the division. But what's going to come down to is a Saturday or Sunday in January in which Andy Dalton shows up.
Yeah, that's true. And is it fair to say, even early on his career like this, is maybe Marvin Jones the John Taylor to A.J. Green's Jerry Rice?
That's a great analogy, and I'll throw another one out there. Alvin Harper to Michael Irvin. That's a good one.
Alvin Harper, wow. That's kind of a backhanded compliment there, man. I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't meant at you, but, then again, at least John Taylor didn't cash in for the big money with the Buccaneers and was never heard from again.
Right, yes, exactly. Well, I meant backhanded compliment to Marvin Jones, not to me.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you meant I was backhanded complimenting your analogy.
No. Why would you say that
Marvin,
about Marvin? You think he's going to go Alvin Harper on you?
No, but I think he's got the potential to get a lot of touchdowns like Alvin Harper just because of the double team factor. But it's not like I said he was Mike Sherrard, Charles.
Oh, okay. All right. Ouch. My leg starts hurting every time you say that.
There you go.
Okay, and just about to get into picks in just a few minutes here, but you know what? Give some props to, how about my Miami Dolphins, getting it done there against Pittsburgh, in Pittsburgh. And by the way, let me ask you now, we saw Antonio Brown step out of bounds on that final play, the kind of Cal Bears lateral play. But if you look in there, Roethlisberger actually had an illegal forward pass. Now, had Brown scored and they reviewed the touchdown, would they go all the way back to that illegal forward pass and say that the touchdown was nullified?
I would think so. I would think so, because all scoring plays are reviewed, and really at some point, and this brings to a bigger issue about what came up this week about having centralized replay. Kind of like how Fox brings in the former refereeing czar Mike Pereira on these calls.
Right.
I think you need to have someone in New York, or I'm not necessarily on site, that says, hey, I'm a second set of eyes, and Antonio Brown stepped out, but look at that illegal forward pass, like the Music City Miracle. And, we're going to nullify it, right? Oh, well, I mean, controversial, but Wade Phillips will tell you it was a forward pass. But I would think so. But given the way the referees have been, given the way replay has been erratic, and this whole, the evidence wasn't indisputable, and we're not going to overturn what was called on the field, I would think, wouldn't you? You'd have to review the whole play at that point.
Yeah, that's what. I hope so. I hope that's the way it works.
Well, you know what? As a Dolphin fan, you should be happy you don't have to find that answer out.
Yeah, that's true. I was willing to take it at face value there. But and you talk about, what about the call that Triplett made, though, in the Bengals game, where clearly that's down by contact. It was ruled down on the field, and he reverses it and actually calls it a touchdown upon review.
Yeah, that's the first
in the
I've seen of
Bengals
that.
game.
I'm really not sure. It's pretty befuddling, and given the year he's having, I'm sure at some point this winter or spring he's going to get the call from New York. But that was a total head scratcher, and I don't know if I'm not sure if it's replay that's causing these, or referees think, well, we've got replay to fall back upon, or if basically there are so many rules now to keep up on that referees are making interpretations that aren't there and then looking back at the video. But I mean, it's got to be hard. I literally was on the field before a Jets-Chargers game a few years ago and saw the replay booth, and I mean, it's pretty cool. It's this little thing with a little curtain that goes over it. But I mean, to be there right on top of the fans, and there's got to be that pressure of wanting to make the call. But I mean, you're out on the field. It's not like you're sitting there at home with your DVR pausing, rewinding slow-mo. I mean, it's got to be tough to make that call.
Right. I mean, that call was so bad that even Bill Levy was like, "What the heck? What the heck was that?"
Yeah, I'm really not sure, but one constant every week it seems we're finding a head scratcher of a call in an NFL game.
Yeah, that's true. So before we get into the pick segment, any final little nuggets you want to throw out there to the audience?
Yeah, I mean, everyone was going stir crazy over the Jets and Geno Smith, and now, Geno Smith had a great game. Look, people, it was against the Raiders. They're not a good team. They really don't have a great defense. The other team in New York that I'd like to address, the Giants, I thankfully, as an unabashed Giants fan, saved my money and did not go to San Diego, and I'm glad I didn't. My friend Darren, another diehard Giants fan, was at the game and basically summed it up in this sentence. They looked like they didn't want to be there. And I know there's been some kind of buzz in New York about, well, does Coughlin need to go, do the coordinators need to go, or these players tuned them out? I don't know, but clearly the players have quit. Eli's had a terrible year. I know the running game's been in shambles, and he's trying to do a lot, but they really have been a disappointment. And to see a team like the Jets that's really not that good, and albeit in a weak AFC, outperforming the Giants, I mean, it's really a shame that a team with this much talent just didn't show up in San Diego.
Yeah, that's true. And you got to look at, the same thing going on there in Steel Town, too, with the Steelers. Just, in there again, you had two teams there were just a lot of injuries. But then look at how the Patriots have dealt with their injury situation. And really, the Patriots have had as many injuries as anyone there. But, they keep holding it together and finding ways to win. Now they're going to have to deal with the loss of Gronk this week again, but it's amazing what Belichick is doing out there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, every team has injuries. Look at the Bears. I mean, McCown come off the bench, and some of these, kind of knee-jerk reaction types are saying, let Cutler go. This guy's a starting quarterback, which I don't know if he is, but if you look at the Packers, I bet they wish they had a McCown backing up Aaron Rodgers. They'd be in the hunt right now.
And, that's a good segue because we're going to have when we go into our pick segment here, one of the big games is the Green Bay Packers. So let's go ahead and review last week as we always do. I managed to stay at 500 last week, but you did gain a game on me here. So now you're 46-37. Yours truly sitting at 35-48 on the season. But you know what? Things are starting to turn around. Just like my Dolphins, I'm trying to make a strong push here at the end.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling the pressure. I am not coasting by any means. This is going to be a proverbial 162-game season right here to the finish.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get into it. First game we're going to take, we talked about the San Diego Chargers come up with the big win against your Giants this weekend. Of course, Denver wins. San Diego at Denver, huge divisional matchup. Any way that the Chargers go into Denver and hang that loss on Peyton Manning and keep their hopes alive?
No. Given the fact that it's a short week and the Chargers traditionally don't always play that well in Denver, to go up there on a Thursday night, don't get me wrong, nice win against my Giants. I'll give the Chargers credit where it's due. But to go in there against a team that knows they're in the driver's seat, they run the table, they're not leaving Denver until hypothetically they go to the Meadowlands if they get that far. I don't see it happening. The Broncos offense is still clicking on all cylinders. Yeah, they're Their defense has not been the greatest, but I don't see going up there in the cold that the Chargers win this game. And before I forget, props to Matt Prater, 64-yard field goal in the freezing cold, breaking the record that was shared with Tom Dempsey, Jason Elam, Sebastian Janikowski. And I know some people attribute it to the high altitude.
Well, that's a long way to kick a football, no matter what the altitude is.
And he had a yard or two to spare to boot, so kudos to him. I don't know if he breaks it this week, but I predict the Broncos victory.
Yeah, and it is hard to go against Peyton Manning, snow and everything. I assume it's snowing in Denver right now. I don't know, but haven't checked the weather. But I'm going to go ahead and go with the ride the hot team there. I'm going to go with Denver against San Diego for really all the reasons that you mentioned. No further analysis needed. Now, I'm going to have to pick the toughest one here. I'm going to have to just make sure I'm picking with my head and not my heart here. New England Patriots at the Miami Dolphins. We know about New England, and plus that they just lost Gronk this week. The Dolphins struggling to stay in there. They're still in the wild card hunt, sitting at 7-6. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go ahead with the Dolphins at home against New England in a must-win game. I'm going to go ahead and take the Dolphins here. I'm saying the Dolphins are going to come through.
All right, this is the first point of the week where we differ. I'm going with the Patriots. They should have lost that game. A questionable pass interference call against the Browns. I get it, but the Browns had their chances to win that game. They didn't put the Patriots away. I think this team knows they're still in contention to get home field, or at the very least get a bye in week 1 of the playoffs. I think they go down to Miami, and yes, they'll miss Gronk, but Brady always finds a way to find another receiver. Edelman's been having a phenomenal year. He's up near the league lead in receptions, and I think the Patriots win.
Well, if you have trouble beating the Browns with Gronkowski, how are you going to beat the Dolphins without Gronkowski? That would be my rebuttal, sir.
But they rallied even after Gronk went out.
But that's the Browns.
A win is a win.
Consummate losers. They couldn't even cover that onside kick that, I didn't see that coming. Did you?
No, I've never seen that, not even in a Super Bowl.
Okay. And then maybe the biggest game of the week here. Green Bay Packers going into Dallas to play the Cowboys. Cowboys just off of that disappointment. I think the Bears scored on their first 8 possessions they had against the Cowboys. So Cowboys reeling a little bit. They needed to get it together. They're going to be in front of their home crowd, which could turn hostile on them. Then you got the Packers just trying to hang in there, sitting at 6-1 in that ridiculously great NFC North race. So Packers in Dallas to play the Cowboys. How do you see this one?
It pains me again to pick the Cowboys again this week, but I'm going to. The Packers, Matt Flynn's playing better. He's better than Tolzien. That said, I really think when you're struggling to beat the Falcons, that doesn't bode well for you, even though the Dallas defense is as porous as a colander right now. At the end of the day, I'll take Tony Romo over Matt Flynn, and I think the Cowboys know their backs are against the wall. It's a must-win. They're at home. I think they'll probably make it more interesting than it should be, and they'll squeak out a victory.
Okay, you know what? And this is a tough game to pick because of the Cowboys' inconsistency. It seems like they should just roll over the Packers, with the Packers with no QB really. But I'm going to go ahead with the Packers in this game. I think it's going to be one of those. Dallas got their confidence shaken last week. They're going to come in. Jerry Jones running his mouth all week about who needs to do what. I think it's going to take its toll. I'm going to take the Packers to go in there, pull a huge upset, and send Big D into unparalleled turmoil.
Wow, you're thinking with your head or your heart on that one, but I like it.
Okay, and then the next one. We just talked about the Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears in Cleveland to play the Browns. The Browns have lost 2 heartbreakers in a row here. Josh Gordon's great performances are getting wasted. Chicago Bears in Cleveland to play the Browns. It doesn't look like Cutler will be back this week, I don't think. But in any case, how do you see this one?
I'm going with the Bears. They've just been playing well. McCown's done a great job. Jeffrey, as we hit on earlier, is a budding star.
Yeah.
And I think they now realize, the Lions do not want to win this division for whatever reason, and they could really sneak up on them here. And like you said, the Browns are not a great team. Yeah, they're on the road, but I'm going with the Bears. I think they've got some momentum. Offense is playing very well, and the defense has been doing its job.
Well, you know what? I'm just going to say this. It's the Cleveland Browns. The Browns don't beat anybody, and I hate to say this about any team, but the Browns are just losers. There was no way they lose a game in the last second at Jacksonville. Then they've got the Patriots down with 2 minutes to play. Can't finish them off. No way the Bears go in with what's at stake and lose this game to Cleveland. So I'm going to go ahead and go with the Bears as well.
I like it. Do you think they're cursed in some way, or they're just it's just the Browns' name? What do you think it is?
Man, I don't know. It almost seems like a curse of some sort, but what could they have possibly done?
Yeah, they never won anything. It's not like the Cubs actually won a World Series once upon a time.
Exactly. And then big AFC North matchup, Cincinnati Bengals going into Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, basically, I don't think they've been mathematically eliminated, but I'd be shocked if the Steelers made the playoffs at this point. But still, divisional game, a lot of things just go out the window. Cincinnati in Pittsburgh. But I think I'll pick this one, I think with the loss to Miami last week and that sinking feeling over there with the Steelers, and still the rumors of Roethlisberger having a rift with Haley just will not go away. I'm going to take Cincinnati to go into Pittsburgh, and it's going to be a hard-fought game, but I think Cincinnati wins this one.
I agree. I'm reminded of last year's game when the Steelers were playing a little better and the Bengals went in there. Dalton rallied late. Last-second field goal won it for them. I could see a similar game to that, close throughout, but I think the Bengals squeaked this out. They're on a roll. They realize they're in the driver's seat in the AFC North, and they'll take this game.
Okay, and then one last game to pick here, and that is Baltimore Ravens, the defending Super Bowl champions, going into the Motor City to play the Detroit Lions, who have got to be feeling like the weight of the world, like Atlas. Or this would more like, would you say Atlas or Sisyphus? Which is more an apt description, analogy for what the Lions would be feeling right now?
I really should know this. I took a Greeks and Romans class in high school. I'm going to say Atlas. I just think, it's a big globe he's got on his shoulders.
Yeah, as opposed to rolling the boulder uphill for eternity?
You know what? That's a lot of work, and they're rolling it uphill, but I feel like the Lions are more proverbially being weighed down, so that's why I would side with Atlas.
Okay, all right. So
but that's just my deuce Greek sense.
Yeah, now that we've given everyone a history lesson, in mythology, rather, if you can have history of mythology. But Baltimore at Detroit. Do the Lions come through in this game, or, hey, do the Ravens, with their championship pedigree, take it to the Lions?
For some strange reason, I think the Lions are going to win. The Ravens had a nice win last week. They came off a nice win against the Steelers the week before that, but they've been helter-skelter up and down. I think Pitta is definitely a welcome addition to Flacco's offense, but the Lions are just one of these teams. Every year when you think they're down, they come back. And the reason I'm going to kind of lean towards them is they're at home. They won't have to deal with any elements like the snow in Philadelphia. I think that'll free up Reggie Bush to run the ball more, and ultimately Megatron to get his receptions. I think it should be a good game. ESPN should be happy. They've had although last week didn't turn out to be a good game, it looked like a good matchup. They've had some good games this year. Where usually heading into December, they're a bunch of clunkers that aren't even worth watching. So I think the Lions pull this one out.
Well, unless Reggie Bush manages to slip on a banana peel this time in warm-ups or something, like he slipped on the ice in the last game. But you know what? I like Baltimore in this game. Something about Flacco on the offense. I think they can light up the Detroit secondary, and also don't know how Detroit's going to get off as far as running the ball goes. That's going to put it on Matt Stafford to get things done downfield. The question is, can the Ravens put enough pressure on, or can they cover Megatron? That's going to be the big matchup there. But I'm going to go ahead and go with the Ravens here to pull the semi-upset here over the Detroit Lions.
You know, I like it. Regardless, you're either going to make up some ground on me or I'm going to pull a little farther away from you. I like when we differ.
Okay, so that's it for the pick segment. We're just about ready to end the show here. So before we do, let me go ahead and remind everyone, when you're on Twitter, follow Chris on Twitter at Chris L Sports. You can also follow yours truly on Twitter at The Inside Sports. Remember, we are changing the world one sport at a time. In honor of, Nelson Mandela talked about using sports to bring the world together. That was, the thing that we have in common. And that's the thing about sporting events is you're sitting there and there's complete strangers on either side of you, but still you have that one thing in common, which is the love of sport. And that's really one of the greatest things about it.
It's a great analogy, Charles. I didn't even think of that. And, we like to wear our colors on our sleeve, literally and figuratively, but at the end of the day, it does bring people together. You're right.
Okay. And anything further for the crowd here this week, Mr. Lardieri?
Just want to thank everyone. My YouTube channel, you can find me under Chris Lardieri. I've gotten some subscribers there as a result of this. I appreciate it. Getting more hits and feedback on the blog, as you had mentioned earlier, chrislsports.blogspot.com. And like you said, follow me on Twitter during the game. I may throw out some sardonic observations or comments about the announcing and so on and so forth.
All right, well, 3 weeks of NFL football left. It's going to be fantastic. So everybody, I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. for Mr. Chris Lardieri. We will see everybody next week. Remember, football talk, and this is an Inside Sports production. Thanks for watching.